We are now passing over Russian ground stations. It is expected that at this point we should receive some updates on the progress the crew is making in closing the hatches between the Soyuz TMA-06M spacecraft and the Poisk module, which is located at the space-facing port of the Zvezda service module on the Russian segment of the International Space Station. At the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside Moscow, again this view from a balcony camera overlooking the cavernous flight control room for Russian operators for the International Space Station. There is also a separate Soyuz flight control room that is also manned by a Soyuz flight director this evening, monitoring all of the Soyuz systems from this point on through the time of touchdown on the steppe of Kazakhstan. We are 3 hours, 10 minutes away from undocking, at which point Expedition 34 transitions automatically to Expedition 35. We're now receiving official word that the Soyuz has been placed on autonomous power. We are still awaiting confirmation of the hatch closing time. We still believe that the crew is working on the closing of the hatches, but the Soyuz is on an autonomous power. It's on its own internal battery power, and Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky is in the process of deactivating the Soyuz connection to ISS power, International Space Station power systems, which has been fed to the Soyuz since docking back on October 25th.
Are we going to autonomous power or not?
Казбек, ЦУПа Москва.
Казбек, Mission Control Moscow.
На связи.
Go ahead. Казбeks are here.
Казбеки, выполнен переход
Казбек.
на питание по КРЛ.
We switched to autonomous via command radio link. You are not to perform 8.1. You don't need to.
Повторите.
Say it again.
Пункт 8.1 на странице 83 не выполняем.
8.1 on page 81. No need to perform it. We commanded via KRL.
Не выполняем.
Copy, no 8.1.
Такой вопрос.
And question.
Не забыли снять?
Did you remove the cap in KSBSU?
Нет, не забыли.
Okay, we did. We did not forget it.
Все хорошо.
Very good.
Казбеки, блок очистки в
Казбек.
отсеке у вас в каком состоянии?
What is the status of the purification unit in the orbital compartment?
Сейчас уточню.
Stand by one.
Сейчас люк закроем, доложим.
We'll close the hatch and then we'll let you know.
Хорошо.
Standing by. Oleg?
This is Mission Control Houston. While we await confirmation of the closing of the hatches between the Soyuz spacecraft and the Poisk module, the Spaceflight Meteorology Group here at the Johnson Space Center looking at weather conditions on the steppe of Kazakhstan, as well as the models that have come into very good agreement over the past 24 hours, shows a forecasted landing time, which is 10:05 p.m. Central Time tonight. At the landing site to the northeast of Arkelik, we're expecting scattered clouds at about 1,000 feet.
Moscow, Kazbek? Go ahead. Purification units are currently off, OFF. Okay, you need to turn them on. Do not forget to remove the cap from the cartridges.
Поняли.
Copy.
Олег,
Oleg?
земля просит включить блоки очистки.
Go ahead, turn on the purification units and remove the caps.
Again, the latest weather forecast being offered by the Spaceflight Meteorology Group here at the Johnson Space Center for landing conditions about 6.5 hours from now at landing time calls for a scattered deck of clouds at about 1,000 feet, a broken deck of clouds at 25,000 feet, excellent visibility, very light winds out of the southeast at about 7 miles an hour. That's insignificant. Temperatures, however, somewhat colder than previously forecast. The temperature at landing time is expected to be about 15 degrees Fahrenheit, with a wind chill factor of 4 degrees Fahrenheit, the landing taking place about 1 hour and 23 minutes after local sunrise. And we now have received confirmation of that the hatches are closed between the Poisk module and the Soyuz spacecraft. Hatch closure marked at 3:38 p.m. Central Time.
Олег,
Oleg?
эту заглушку прими.
Take the cap.
СОП Москвы, Казбек.
Moscow, Kazbek?
На связи.
Go ahead.
Заглушка в БО.
The cap and BO is removed. Purification units are activated. Very good, copy. Another question. What is the setting for DSD currently?
Олег, вон он.
Oleg?
Так, настройка ДСД 700. Принято 700. Спасибо.
Copy. Inaudible.
Так. Окей, смотри, сюда надо.
Okay. It should go here, I think.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, we have confirmation of the closing of the hatches between the Soyuz TMA-06M spacecraft and the Poisk module of the International Space Station that resides on the space-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Hatch closure marked officially at 3:38 p.m. Central Time. The Soyuz has been placed on its own autonomous internal battery power, now off of International Space Station power systems, and will be for the remainder of its journey back to Earth. The next step on the road home for Kevin Ford, Oleg Novitsky, and Yevgeny Turelkin will be the depressurization of the interface vestibule or small passageway between the Soyuz and Poisk. The leak checks that will follow to ensure that we have a tight seal between the two spacecraft, and then the crew will don their Sokol launch and entry suits and strap themselves into their respective seats in the descent module of the Soyuz spacecraft, the center section of the three-section Soyuz spacecraft. Oleg Novitsky, the Soyuz commander, who will be flying under the call sign of Kazbek, will be in the center seat of the Soyuz, flanked on his left by board engineer Yevgeny Turelkin, and on his right by NASA's Kevin Ford, the outgoing commander for Expedition 34, who 2 days ago handed over command of the International Space Station to Canadian Space Agency astronaut Chris Hadfield. At the time of undocking, Expedition 34 will come to a close. Expedition 35 will begin formally aboard the International Space Station as Ford, Novitsky, and Turelkin point to their undocking from the Poisk module just over 3 hours from now at 6:43 p.m. Central Time, headed for a landing at 10:05 p.m. Central Time, 36 miles to the northeast of Arkelik. Helicopters have been deployed to the forward staging points in Arkelik. 4 other Russian Mi-8 helicopters associated with the Rosaviatsia search and recovery forces, and also populated by NASA landing personnel, will be flying from Kustanay, Kazakhstan for a 2-hour flight down to the landing site. All of the helicopters will converge in a racetrack pattern around the landing zone, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz TMA-06M, its 3 passengers, and an end to almost 5 months on orbit for Kevin Ford, Oleg Novitsky, and Yevgeny Turelkin. That'll wrap up the first of our broadcasts for today. With hatches now closed, the crew on board the Soyuz spacecraft will continue its pre-undocking preparations for undocking just under 3 hours from now. We will be back on the air at 6:15 p.m. Central Time, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time for the undocking of Expedition 34. For now, we'll call it a broadcast. This is Mission Control, Houston.
LED D8 is no longer eliminated.